So here we are with another I Will Never Forgive You feedback Q&A comment corner video. So this is episode 14, and this is going to be a wild and woolly one. I've already recorded not only the episode 14 podcast. Typically I do this first and then do the podcast. I reversed it this time, just trying to speed things up. I think it worked. But then I also recorded a special episode of the podcast, which, if you know, I don't think there's anybody who watches the feedback video without watching the podcast video. I think there are plenty of people who watch a podcast video without watching the feedback video. I think that is true. In fact, let me confirm the numbers here. Yeah, the most recent podcast episode had 75 views, 11 comments, and the feedback had 51 views and 8 comments. So more people consistently watch the podcast over the feedback video. So since you've seen the podcast, I'm not going to repeat myself with the whole, go to tier 3 and there's going to be a bonus podcast episode there for you. You know about that, so we don't need to reiterate it. So, but yeah, the point being, though, the reason I bring it up here, I recorded back-to-back podcasts. So it was about 3 hours total. I'm already exporting them as I speak. I think the actual podcast was an hour and 40 minutes, and then the bonus podcast is like an hour and 20 minutes or some shit. So yeah, it's about 3 hours, probably 3.5 hours recording. And I'm ready and willing and able to just jump into these feedbacks. So let's go ahead and start feeding back, shall we? Starting up with a couple of 100 Stone questions. LOL, no, what a crazy question. That's going to require a little context. I ask, have you ever in real life risked it all to save somebody? I can save her. I can save him. LOL, no, what a crazy question. Hey, I'm here to ask the crazy questions. And I think everybody said no. I did a cursory glance at the comments, I think everybody has said no. Well, I guess you just haven't met the right crazy person. So, for instance, we now got Tilly Norwood, I think her name is. The AI actress. She's hot as hell. I might risk it all for her, man. Like, maybe I'm like, what's his name? The weirdo from Steins Gate, who only likes 2D girls, instead of 3D girls. I don't know. But she's hot as hell. So, can they consistently generate hot pictures of her? That's the question. And can she give a credible performance? Probably not. Like, I don't think you could. I think you have to have sentience and a heart and emotions to give a credible, believable performance. We're going to find out. I want to see that first AI performance. No human voiceover fueling the animation. Because here's the thing. With anime, which, is why we're all here, right? With anime, yes, you have hand-drawn. These are drawings. And you would ask the question, can a drawing give a credible performance? I would say the visuals help, but it's that human vocal performance that sells or doesn't sell whether this is a credible performance that we're seeing on the screen. It's the vocal performance. It's the audio. It's where it comes from. You're not really doing acting on a manga page, a static page. You're just seeing images and the mind is filling in the blanks. The mind supplies the acting in that case. But this is a motion picture medium. The pictures are moving. And since this is action and motion, you have to give a credible performance for us to believe that this is really happening, for us to be immersed, for us to believe this is happening. And the credible performance, I believe, comes from, you have to be a competent artist, and they have to draw it correctly, and, it can't be uncanny valley. The drawing has to be fairly realistic, and the art style has to be something that, is not, like, if you're giving a dramatic performance, the art can't be super cute. What do they call it? Chibli, when they look like Peanuts characters or whatever. Super cute. They can't be looking like that if you're doing Shakespeare. Unless it's one of his stupid comedies. So, I think it's the vocal performance that sells whether or not we believe the performance we're seeing, right? So, that's what I'm saying here. Like a human being emoted through their voice. They delivered a vocal performance. Can an AI duplicate that? Can they match the emotion of the scene? Can they convey what the writer is trying to convey? Now, if you have an AI script and you have an AI performance, Maybe they can. Like, you're on the same page. You know, the AI brain for the actress is the same AI brain for the writer. They're in sync with each other, and so maybe they can deliver what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to convey. Maybe she can deliver what you're trying to convey, but is that just going to be what we call a slop, right? Is it going to be shit? Is it not going to be something worth even watching? Like, okay, you conveyed it, but we didn't really need that conveyed. Or will it be something that touches the heart and, is a credible performance and we believe it and it's something worth seeing? Like, this is an experience worth experiencing. I'm not I know AI is evil, is taking people's jobs away and all this stuff, and it's slop, and people hate AI. I'm not pro AI. As a matter of fact, I'm anti artificial intelligence in general. I have been since I watched Terminator when I was about, what, 12, 13, whatever. Whenever the hell it came out, you know, um, I've been pretty much anti artificial intelligence since that moment. And there's even a movie I saw before that called Silent Running, which actually I think that I don't think they were sentient, the robots in that movie. Maybe, maybe not. Silent Running had a lot of. No, I think that was more just human, human weaknesses. Anyway, I'm anti artificial intelligence. I'm anti computers taking over the world. I'm anti computers killing all humans. So, no, I'm not pro AI when it comes to taking over entertainment. But I must admit a little bit of professional curiosity about if you just unleash artificial intelligence writing with artificial intelligence CGI, could they create a short film, a scene that would be worth experiencing, that would move a human being? I'm not convinced they can, but I'm not convinced they can't. I would like to see it. I think that'd be a worthwhile experiment. At any rate, that's not really what you were talking about. You're just saying it's a crazy question. But I'm just saying, I might risk it all for this AI actress because everybody's being mean to her. Look, man, she's hot. What can I say? This is also Hunter Stone. Where is your Oscar acting nomination for your sacrifice scene? Look, man, if I had any acting skills whatsoever, I would have saved a shit ton of money. I'm so jealous of those people. I've even seen a short film where they did this. The people that can write, direct, edit, and act. They could, then I really could do it because I was doing everything else. I was producing, I was writing, I was directing, I was editing. Man, if I could act, if I had any acting skill whatsoever, I would have saved so much money and so much time. We could shoot on my schedule. You don't have to bring in actors for every damn little thing. But you have to know your strengths and weaknesses, right? Like, there are some of these egomaniacs who do think they can act and they can't. That was never my problem. I stayed where I could do. I could credibly direct, I could credibly write, I could credibly produce, and I could credibly edit. Those are my strengths. You've seen a couple of examples of my films on these YouTubes. They're not perfect. They're probably not even a B plus, right? But it's credible. It's functional. You actually accomplished the goal of releasing a film that is at least lucid, coherent, maybe mildly entertaining, right? So that couldn't clear that bar when it came to acting. I couldn't clear the bar of a C plus performance, so I never tried, and thank God for that. Probably spared a lot of people because there's got to be nothing worse. The actor showing up on set. They've been hired by the person, the money person. The room is what you end up with. They've been hired by the money person, who turns out to also be the director, who turns out to also be the producer, who turns out to also be the writer who wrote this shit, and who turns out that they're the leading actor. And you're showing up on set and you guys support this. The best you can hope for is there's a raging narcissist who is at least a mediocre actor. What you're most likely going to get is a shitty actor and a malignant narcissist. So, not a good situation. This one's from Ariel. When it comes to some anime characters, or maybe just fictional characters in general, I think a lot of people of any gender might fantasize about being able to fix a bad guy or heavily flawed character they like, even if it's not something that they want to do or would even act on trying to do in real life. Probably so. Another thing, what's actually much more common when I watch it is I want to comfort a character who's in pain. That just strikes to the heart of me. Like, it's really hard to walk past a person that's in pain, right? So to me, I see the character curled up in a corner crying, and I would just like to be able to step into the piece of entertainment, walk over there, give them a hug, comfort them. I would love to be able to do that. Can't. So what are you gonna do here? But that's my biggest impulse. My biggest impulse is actually not fixing the bad person, even if they're sexy, but more just wanting to comfort the person that's in pain. Because that's where that strikes me at the heart, right? So that's kind of where I go when I actually watch stuff. If we're jokes aside and main topic aside, that's my comfort zone. That's my zone. That's what I want to do, right? So that's pretty. That's where I'm at. I think that's where probably most people are. Like, every one of you is denied wanting to fix the bad person. Like, we got no people with the courage to admit what they're really thinking. I'm kidding. You feel I don't think anybody's lying, but like, nobody's willing to admit it, right? But I think probably most of you have felt the impulse I'm talking about. Most likely, wow, I wish I could comfort this person. Like, oh, damn, they're in bad shape. They just need a helping hand. To finish the comment, this is in parentheses. Or they know it's not possible in real life, but like to imagine anything is possible when it comes to fiction. And you know what? As a writer, as a storyteller, I really do like to believe anything is possible in fiction. You know, like, that's why we have fairy tales. All right, next comment from Andy. Thanks for talking about Yu. Yes, I get that writing a chapter week to week does not automatically make a show bad, but it's definitely at less of an advantage than a story with lots of time to plan. On top of what you have to remember, manga writers also have to draw everything, which is it's crazy to me. Are there no manga where you have an artist writer team? Is it like, it could be this thing where it's like, for instance, there's certain musical styles, like rap, for instance. You're supposed to, like, in country, it's almost uncommon for the person who writes the song to sing the song. In country, you buy songs and then you sing them, and nobody has a problem with that. Even though country is also a storytelling kind of song genre, just the way rap is. But in rap, you have to write your own material to sing it. That's just the way it is. That's the way the rules are. I know there's probably a couple exceptions out there, but you don't see rappers covering other rap songs. Every now and then you'll see them do a rap version of another genre song, like a rock song or a country song. I don't think I've ever seen a rapper cover the rap song of a previous person who did that rap song like 10 years ago. They don't cover songs. You have to write your own material. And so that's just a part of the genre. It's expected. Like, you are weak and you are less than if you're a rapper and you don't write your own music, right? You don't write your own lyrics. That's just what's expected. So is that the case here with manga? Is it just expected if you're the manga creator, you have to draw it and write it? Is that the case? I don't know the answer to this question. I've never heard of a writing team. Like, writing teams are so common. I don't think there's very many Western American comics where the writer is also the artist. There are very few examples. You have a writer who doesn't know shit about drawing anything, and then you have artists that maybe they could do some writing if they wanted to, right? But like, they mostly just do art. And then you will even just have like an anchor who will well, you have somebody who actually just does the dialogue, right? Like, the artist will put it in the dialogue boxes, and then there's that third person who puts in all the dialogue, and then you have a fourth person who inks everything. So it's a 4-man team. Comics are a 4-man team, and you know what's really insane about this is those 4-man team cannot keep to a monthly schedule, 24 pages every month. They can't do it. 4-man team. It's a 4-man goddamn team. This is the American work ethic at its brightest, right? Although a lot of American comics are written by British and French and German people. But, so it's not exclusively American. They just come to America and write the comics because that's where the money's at, right? Probably the biggest market in the world for comics outside of Japan and maybe Asia. But a 4-man team cannot keep to a monthly schedule. And you're telling me with manga, some of these dudes be doing this on a weekly schedule. Everything. Because I assume the manga artist also writes the dialogue in the boxes. And if there is inking, I don't know if there's inking in manga. If there is, they do that too. They do 4 jobs and get it done faster than 4 people can do 1 job. You know, insane, absolutely insane. I just have so much respect for that. But I do wonder, why is that not acceptable for to be an artist and a writer? Like, why is it not acceptable to be a team? And maybe I'm wrong about that. I have not heard of a case where that has happened yet. Everybody's just a 1-man team that I've heard of. So, um, yeah. So like he's saying, like, you have to draw everything, so it's really less than a week per chapter. You say UU is a fun time. Okay, that was a separate thought. It's less than a week per chapter. Yeah. So the time crunch is insane, and you're right. This is a massive disadvantage. But basically, my point was this and Charles Dickens and you could say One Piece because like he does seem to be under pretty heavy deadlines. He seems to excel at that for the most part, unless like he's had hand problems and health problems and shit. That's gotten in the way, I'm sure. The One Piece author I'm talking about. I don't know enough about any of the other manga to know how well, like for instance, the Naruto artist, author. I don't know, like whether he struggled or not, or what was going on there, or what the schedule was. But I think that it didn't seem to me like he had a destination point in mind when he started the story. And I don't know that a lot of people do. Dickens often didn't. And there were some others. I wish I could remember some of the names of the other famous authors who were doing the month-to-month publication thing in newspapers and stuff and magazines. It was happening back then in the time of Dickens. There were several. I think Jules Verne could have been one of them. I think H.G. Wells had money, so he wasn't under that, so he would just write his books, right? But really, I think the biggest issue here is not necessarily the week-to-week thing. I think it's the fact that you don't get a second pass after you've completed your first draft. Because I think every story, like I've talked about before, every story is written week to week. It's written chapter to chapter. It's written paragraph to paragraph. You slop out that first draft. You get 2/3 of the way through the story. Oh, I know what I'm going to do. Here's the ending. And then you do that ending. And then you put it on the shelf for a little while and you come back to it and you're like, okay, now let me examine the whole thing in totality from the beginning. Oh, wait, here, this second chapter. If I'm going to do this at the end, I should do this here. That second pass is invaluable. And if he had the benefit of that, if he could have done a second pass, God knows how different the story would have been. It might have been better, but it might have been worse, right? The Attack on Titan famously had a study long, study wrong thing to it. Like, he made it worse with more thought, from what I've said. From what I've seen, from what people have told me, he overthought things, spent too much time thinking about the ending, and made it worse rather than make it better. Yeah, so you can spend too much time on it as well. So, yeah, I think we're on the same page. Basically, I'm just saying it doesn't automatically make it suck. And it's levied as a criticism. They didn't know, what did they say about Lost? They were making it up as they went along. And that whole making it up as they went along thing is what I actually find offensive. That's every goddamn story that's ever been written. You made up as you went along. The only difference between every goddamn story that's ever been written and Lost and these other things like other multi-season TV shows that have overarching arcs, Lost is damn near a perfect TV show. Breaking Bad was written, they made it up as they went along. A lot of people consider that the best TV show ever made. The Sopranos, they made it up as they went along. The Wire, they made it up as they went along. Between those titles, I think we can all agree somewhere in those shows I mentioned is probably the best TV show ever made. Those have overarching stories, and they were made up as they went along. But for every one of those, then you'll have a X-Files that was made up as it went along, but they didn't stick the landing. They didn't know how to finish it. So that's where it goes bad, and that's where people levy this made up as it went along. The difference between everything that's made up as it went along and stories you like is that stories you like are stories you like. That's the only difference. X-Files and Sopranos were both made up as they went along. You like one of them, you don't like the other one. So on X-Files, they made it up as they went along. That's why it sucks. Mother effer, they made up The Sopranos as they went along. The Wire, House, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, if you want to talk about that one. It's all made up as they went along, man. Breaking Bad had the first scene of season 5, they show a gun in a trunk. They had no idea what the hell that gun was going to be used for. None whatsoever. Flash forward a year, they're starting to shoot the back half of the final season. They figured out what the gun was. Breaking Bad was made up as it went along. Every story is. The only difference between that, like I said, is you like the story, you don't like the story. If you don't like the story, it's made up as it went along is a pejorative. If you do like the story, it's made up as it went along is impressive. It's all made up as it went along. So that's all I was really saying. I think we're on the same page. And then you're saying Yu Yu is a fun time and not really any serious writing, but Chapter Black was incredible for the time constraints. You keep talking about Chapter Black. I think you mentioned it again later. What the hell is Chapter Black? I've never heard that phrase before in my life, and I've seen this far into the show. Oh, the tape was called Chapter Black. So basically the other spirit detective that he fights, from the beginning of that where he has to deal with the 7 or whatever, up to where he gets defeated. I think so. That's the part of the story you're talking about. Okay, gotcha. That's pretty good. Yeah. The show itself may not be top 5, but to me, Chapter Black is a goated arc. It was entertaining the whole way through, and that arc in particular was written very well. It's just interesting. You and I just approach things differently. For me, do I love the characters or not? You seem very plot driven. I'm more character driven. Like, you love individual plots, right? And yes, I do talk about plots. I talk about, I love this arc better than this one, and I love, like, for instance, Marineford, Thriller Bark, and probably this Eggland from One Piece. Those 3 arcs are really excellent, and I love them a lot. Naruto, the beginning of the Shippuden series, where you got the stuff in the cave and all this other drama that's happening. You got that guy flying around, the bomb glue guy flying. All that was really, really good. I love that a lot. And then probably the final arc, once they when they start getting imprisoned in the dream world and all this shit, it's all really good. So I love those arcs. But for me, it's the characters. And what stands out for me is I like the characters in Yu Yu, specifically Yu Yu, Hiei or whatever, Fox Dude, Broom Girl. Would really help if I could get these names, but it is what it is. And Kumbaya, the bully. I just love their interactions. I love their interplay. I love this antagonistic shit, immature ass, belligerent sexual tension antagonism between Yusuke and the bully. That's just a very unique relationship. It's so weird, man. We've seen plenty of bullies to friends, but we've never really seen, for one thing, here's what's weird about this dynamic. Yusuke always kicked his ass. Typically with bullies, it's the bully kicks the protagonist's ass, but then they become friends. This is a complete odd. They turned that on its head. That's one of the things that's so unique about it. It's just such an interesting relationship. So I love the characters. Yes, the plot has a hell of a lot of problems, and a lot of the characterization is whack. We also had the problems with the dub, but who cares about that? That's not what we're talking about. Story here. The author wrote the lines. The lines are fine. Yeah, but just a lot of the characters are underdeveloped. The shit with this girlfriend, I think if you remove the girlfriend from this story, what actually changes? Just take her out. She doesn't exist. What actually changes? There's one time when she gets threatened, and Yusuke has to, they're trying to use, the threat of killing her is going to make him do something. I can't remember what it was. That was a while ago. So that affected the plot for that episode or two. But then she got out of it on her own, I think. So she's a witness. She watches shit. She takes care of poo, but anybody could have done that. You could literally take her out of this story and there would be nothing would change. She's had no impact on the plot. She didn't even keep him from going to the demon world. I guess at best, she's why he wants to come back, but you could just use his bully friend for that purpose. they're BFFs. I'm joking about the sexual tension, but I'm not even saying to imply that they're lovers or anything. But like you may want to go back just because you have a best friend. I have a best friend. I've known him for 30 years. I would do a lot for him. He would be proper motivation. Like if I have to go to Russia for whatever purpose, and rather than just stay in Russia for the rest of my life, I'd probably want to come back to America because I want to see my best friend because he's my best friend. I've known him for 30 years. So and there's no sex there. It's just I just think that it's enough of a motivation. So you don't need her character. So that's just an underdeveloped character. They should have spent more time developing her, giving her more to do, giving her a personality beyond Yusuke. Give her something. All she ever does is sit around and pine for him and worry about him. That's basically all we see, right? Like, what are her dreams? What does she want to do in life? Do we know what kind of job she wants? No. We don't know what her hobbies are. What special classes, what hobby classes is she taking in school? Because I think that's almost required over there. You have to take something, right? What does she want, right? Like, so, most of these other shows, typically the girlfriend will end up being a fighter of some form. In Bleach they did that, some form or another. They'll have some kind of latent power. They discover a power. They're infected with something that gives them power, whatever. Some way to keep them, put them, make them a part of the main story without just being a witness and a damsel in distress. So, I will say, the female characters in the show are pretty well written for the time period. It's talking about Naruto. A lot of times they were just arm candy, or you'll have a female ninja, but she'll be the medic. She won't be the warrior, the kick ass. I'm gonna stomp some ass. No, she'll be the medic. They're always a medic, right? We rarely see a male medic in Naruto or Boruto. So they're kind of like second class citizens in a lot of old anime. One Piece, Nami is a navigator. One of the most passive occupations you could possibly have on a ship. The only thing more passive than a navigator is the effing cook. And, one of the worst characters ever written has that role. So it's a dude. So that is impressive that they did that. But yeah, the first female character, she starts out as a thief. And we don't really see her doing any thieving or anything else like that, with her own agency for the most part. For a lot of the series, she has the occupation of, she draws maps and she's a navigator. Now, later they add other female characters that have more to do and have more abilities and fruit powers. And there are just a shit ton of strong female characters in One Piece. A metric shit ton. There are so many. Bad guys, good guys, somewhere in the middle. Navy, pirates, civilians, across the board. They're well populated with strong female characters. But a lot of it happened later, in the more modern era. For the shit being written in the 90s, I've only seen a little bit of Dragon Ball Z, but that is heinous when it comes to like how they write their female characters. This show, if we're going to give this show a compliment, it deserves more than one compliment. This is a compliment, I'll give it right now. They have, the female characters are not armed here. Like I said, the one time that like the girlfriend was a damsel in distress, she got herself out of it. So, they're not great written, but they're not terrible written. They're mediocrely written. Like Botan, I remember her name. Broom Girl. Very passive. You would think a supervisor would have fighting abilities and powers and could, chip in. And if it was a male character, she would be able to. She would do all that. But because she's a female, she just rides her broom and passes messages and gives orders and scolds him and cares about him. That's about it, right? Though it would have made more sense for her to do most of what Kuwabara did. Because she's actually part of this world at the beginning of the story. He's not. But they gave it to the guy, right? So, they didn't write, and I know this is faint praise, but they didn't write shitty female characters. The sister's a strong character. She'll kick some ass. She gets herself out of her own situations. They're not afraid to have the women be terrible. Like the mother is terrible. He talks dirtball bad about his mom. See, that's another thing. It's sexist to have all the women on pedestals and they can't be just as shitty as the dudes, right? It's sexist to have only the dudes have a shitty father instead of a shitty mother, and then the mother's perfect. In a lot of anime, the mother's perfect. I just started Demon Slayer. Perfect mother. Tragically taken before her time, right? You can have shitty parents and have them be the women, have them be the mothers. It's sexist to not do so, right? So, it depends on the story. You have one set of parents and you decide to make the dad the layabout and the mom perfect. Okay, whatever. That's one set. But it is impressive when they do it the other way around. And they did it here. So the author seems pretty modern in the way he looks at things. Just not great. He's not in the 21st century, but at least he's not in the 19th century. That's kind of what I'm saying. I wish they would do more with the female characters in this show, but what they did is pretty good. So that's where we'll put that. So yeah, to me, it's not about a specific arc. I'll address this more. I think you specifically asked me this later. It's really just about the characters. This show stands out to me because I love the characters, I love the interactions, I love a lot of the lore, and yeah, the plots are decent. Some of them are half baked, and some of the characters are half baked, and some of the lore is like, I still feel like there's some retcons here and there, and it does feel rushed, and it feels like another pass at the overall script would have been great, but not terrible. I mean, when I finish this, I'll be doing another, in a recent podcast, I actually ranked my top 10 favorite anime of all time. And that'll come out at some point. It's my extra bonus podcast I put up on Patreon. In another 10 episodes, I'll do it again because I'll have finished Yu for sure. I will have finished Garden of Sinners. I will have finished Fortress Macros. I will have finished Seven Deadly Sins most likely. So I will finish a lot of shit so that I will see if any of these jump into the top 10. So we'll see where it stands at that point. Hunter Stone. Didn't know I needed a mug shanty portion of the podcast until now. That was pretty good, wasn't it? I didn't know if anybody would like that or not. It started to feel long. I actually cut out a couple of them. I think I ended up talking about 10 of them, and I don't remember how many I ended up with, but I cut out several of them. Can we make this one of the Patreon podcast episodes? Well, if we ever try to fix her again, we will, Ariel, no, I've never thought I could fix someone. I don't even think I could I don't even think I could fix myself. Well, here's my thing about that, right? Like, just not trying to drop anything deeply philosophical on us, but, I believe as long as you accept who you are and what you are, you're going to be pretty happy and you probably won't need fixing. Now, there are some people that are just severely damaged and what they are is like something unspeakable and heinous. That's not what I'm talking about. Everybody wants to go to the extreme use case. I'm talking about the 98% of the people that are rolling around this shitty world of ours. There's that 2% that are just way out there. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. Most people, they have something they don't like about themselves. Whatever it is. It could be body image issues. It could be intellect. It could be hair loss. The fact you can't grow a real beard. Like, a lot of dudes struggle with that. I don't give a shit, but a lot of dudes like, oh my God, I wish it would fill out. They want to grow a proper beard or whatever. It can be anything, man. Like, and there's all the personality things it could be. I wish I was smarter. I wish I didn't get angry all the time. I wish I could control my sadness and my temper. I wish I wasn't depressed. Whatever it is, right? I think a lot of people, they're in denial. So that, first you have the issue that makes you unhappy. Then you have to be in denial about it. And it makes you unhappy. And I think the denial is the worst part. So if you could just be like, look, this is what it is. I'm not very smart. That's what it is. That's the card I've been dealt. That's just a grim reality. It hurts, but I accept the fact I'm not very smart. I'm going to stay in my lane. I won't try to do super smart shit. I won't pretend I'm smarter than I am. I won't use big words I don't know how to use. I'm just going to stay in my lane. Then you will find out you're so much happier because you're not holding yourself back. Your lane can be really good. It can be a fast lane, man. It can be an enjoyable lane. It can be a charismatic lane. People like you in that lane. But trying to be something you're not makes you look pretentious and delusional and idiotic and pathetic. And you're not having fun, so you're miserable. And you feel the secret shame of trying to pretend something you're not. So there's all that shit. Whereas if you just accept the fact you're not very smart, embrace it and move on, you'll be a lot happier and a lot of other people will be happier with you. That's my philosophy in life, whatever the issue is. Because each person is different, right? And so I've accepted, for instance, it's really hard for me to lose weight, especially as I get older. I don't like it, but it is what it is. I'm eating less. I just can't exercise. It's really hard to exercise and do reactions at the same time. So finding that part difficult. Probably metabolism issues, and then it's just harder as you get older to lose weight. So there's reasons I could do more about it, and hopefully I will at some point. But like in the meantime, it's like okay, well, this is it. I'm embracing how much I weigh, you know. Because what's the alternative? Feel like shit all the time, yeah. So you know, maybe there are things people need to fix, but then maybe it's just about accepting what it is. Maybe that's what you need to fix. So I don't know. That's my philosophical corner for the episode. All right, now here it is. That yeah, this was the question I was thinking about from Andy. Is there any arc in the first 100 episodes? Now you are very clever to say the first 100 episodes because I got 3 arcs that would kick your ass if you just said One Piece. But you were very specific about the first 100 episodes. Very wise. Yeah, you did the right thing there. Because I was going to stomp you out with Marineford, Thriller Bark, Wano. Well, though Wano has its issues, and it's just too goddamn long. So Marineford, Thriller Bark, and Eggland for sure. Or Egghead. It's Egg something. That you think is better than the Chapter Black art. Well, like, you know, I've already talked about how, like, for me, it's more about the characters. But no, like, the early arcs of One Piece were, you know, not great, you know? And it's also a little bit of an unfair comparison because what we're really talking about here, this author knew he had a long story to tell. The Yu Yu author knew he didn't have a long story to tell. I don't know what his intentions were when he sat down to write the first chapter. I doubt he wanted to write 1,400 chapters, okay? Now, I don't think the One Piece author, when he sat down, imagined 1,400 chapters either, but he imagined a long story. I think I heard he was originally thinking about maybe 1,000 chapters, 500 before the time skip and 500 after the time skip. He's writing a long story. So it's apples and oranges to compare the first 100 to the first 100 because he's telling a longer story. We don't even have the full crew gathered in the first 100. So I think a more apt comparison would be maybe the first 250 episodes of One Piece. Even if we do that, I still don't think you would have an arc where I would say is like massively superior. Alabaster is pretty good. Alabaster could, and I don't remember when that was, but it may have been actually started in the first 100. I think it extends beyond the first 100. But it's one that has Crocodile, and that's where we meet Robin. And so there's some good things happening there. It's pretty good. But probably not, you know, I mean, for what it's worth, you know, I don't know that this is a contest. It's not a who's got the best art contest or anything. Because, you know, for me, and again, it may be different. I think for you remember plots, right? For me, it's been 2 years, maybe 3 years, since I watched Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Do I remember specific arcs? No. I remember fights. I couldn't tell you when they happened in the story. I remember they went to an ice portion of the map at some point. They were in the desert quite a while. They had a religious nut early on. Of course, I remember the shit with the dog and the daughter. That stands out. You know what I remember? I remember the characters. I remember the two brothers. And I remember their idiotic mechanic girlfriend, right? I remember the military guy. Now, do I remember the names? Hell no. You know me. Like, look, this is me and you right here. No, I don't remember the names. But the military guy and his minion. Military guy, his minion, the two brothers, and then the pseudo-girlfriend. That's what I remember. The characters are what stand out to me. They are what matter. How many characters in this series will I remember 2 years from now? Because, yeah, I remember other characters were in the series. There was some big dude, you know, took his shirt off or whatever and cried. I think that was that show. Fullmetal. But how many characters stand out? How many characters will I vividly imagine and can even imagine dialogue from and can imagine interacting with crossovers with other series? From Fullmetal, it would be 5, right? How many will I remember from this series 2 years from now? That's the test. Because for me, it's not about the arcs. It's not about the plot. It's about the characters. You know, for me. You know, I'm a character-driven, you know, viewer and storyteller. So, for me, at least I hate to say it, I think Boss Baby's gonna be somebody I remember. Maybe even just because he spent half the series being super annoying, and now he's really come on as a pretty interesting badass character. Turning his back on his father is a big deal, man. That's a big deal. That's impressive. You know, taking the pacifier out and sacrificing that, considering what that meant and what it represented. That's a big deal. So I'll remember that. I'll remember him. I'll remember Yusuke. I'll remember Kuwabara. I don't. That may be it. As far as characters who vividly stand out, and I can I really have the personalities locked down. I think Hiei or whatever his name is and Foxboy. Do we really know their personalities? Maybe we still got 12 episodes left, so it could fill in a little bit more. But 3 for sure. And I think any great series has to have at least 3 to 5, a minimum of 3 characters who stand out and feel unique. The more anime I watch, the harder this is going to be. You know, how many characters stand out and feel unique in One Piece? Well, I'm still in the middle of it. You know, that's hard to say. How about Attack on Titan? How many characters stand out, feel vivid? Well, we've got the military dude with the sword, the younger one, you know, the cool one, right? I don't remember his name. Then you've got Eren, I actually remember his name. Misaka, and I don't never remember Blondie's name. That's 4 right there. Stand out. Then you have that bitch, I think her name is Amy or something. She kind of stands out a little bit. She really pissed me off. That's why she stands out. That's a valid way to stand out, pissing me off. We'll accept that. That's an answer we'll accept. You piss me off. So 4 there. Let's see. What other long-running show that I watch? Monster. You've got the Doctor. You've got the sister of the killer. You've got the killer himself. Then you've got the stupid soccer boy. The criminal. And the therapist. Now, that's may not be fair because it's only been about 6 months since I stopped watching it. I don't think it's been long enough. Attack on Titan's been at least a year. This really is, you got to wait a while and then ask the question. But for now, there's a lot of characters that stand out in Monster. Kaguya, Love is War. Easily, just off the top of my head, you've got the romantic couple. Then you've got, what's her face, the insane, bright, cheerful, whatever the hell her name is, you know, the friend. She's, what was she, the treasurer of because they had their ruling class, right? Because he was a president, she was a vice president, you know, the loving couple. I think she was a treasurer. So, those 3 for sure. And then you've got the handmaiden from, you know, the female romantic person's handmaiden. Most vivid, she's one of the more vivid characters I've ever seen. I don't remember her name, but she is awesome. She's maybe one of my favorite characters ever created. Just the fact she has different personas and she's in disguise and just she's like 15 or 16, has had a job since she was 10 or 9 and does that job very well. It has that professional separation between job and personal life at 15, and you got 35-year-old ass adults who can't separate business and pleasure. And she's got that just perfectly crafted separation. It's sarcastic as hell. Just one of my favorite characters ever created. So that it's been a year or 2 since I've seen that, and so we've got 4 off the rip, right? That's the test. For me, that's the test. For you, it's story arcs. And I'm not saying it's not valid. We're just different people, right? So for you, it's story arcs. For me, it's characters. For you, it'd probably be like the way you'd rank it is: can you remember vividly 2 story arcs from an anime, at minimum? And if you can, and you can articulate that, and they stand out to you even years later without having rewatched it, then you can say that's a classic series, right? That may be your test. Everybody's probably different. For me, the test is characters, right? So that's where we're at. All right, so that's it for the actual podcast. All right, now there's a really great comment. We start off with a comment from Hunter Stone talking about Stephen King. It's pretty long, so I'll let you read it. It's from the episode 13 feedback video. But I'll read the first 2 paragraphs, and the third paragraph is just basically he's reviewing the novel It. Go check it out if you've read the novel. I won't spoil it if you haven't. So, But the first two paragraphs, I've only read two Stephen King books so far, Pet Sematary and It. Pet Sematary is one of my favorite books of all time, ignoring the final chapter. You didn't like the dark ending? Yeah, I mean, spoiler alert. I thought it was great. The ending was the best part. Maybe not the best part, but it was really good. That story has stuck with me. We talk about stories sticking with you. Characters sticking with you. This is an example of the story sticking with me, not necessarily the characters. The characters are just okay. The story, man, my God, that did stick with me. Yeah. There's a sequence where, he loses one of his children at a young age. I think the boy's like 2 or 3, right? And then he goes, the one chapter is just this fantasy. He's fantasizing that kid's life the rest of his life. Knowing that at the time Stephen King wrote this, his own son was that age. He had 2 sons, ended up. One of his sons was that age. So knowing he's writing what he's most afraid of. This, I think, was Pet Sematary. I think was a book he wrote that he doesn't remember writing because he was so coked out of his mind. He doesn't remember writing it, and he's never reread it. There's just a feeling of dread. So, thinking about it. So this is definitely cocaine fueled, right? And I just very recently finished it. Here is my review of it with slight spoilers. Great review. Go check it out if you've read the novel. All right. Also, Hunter Stone. Actually, the Pokemon video games came first. The first game came out in 1996, and the first series came out a year later. So the games came first, and then they made a TV series out of it. I assume you mean came to Japan? That sounds like a Japanese thing to do. Let's, market this shit. Hey, the game's popular. Let's make a series out of it. There is precedent for this. Movies have been made from video games for sure. Has a TV series been made from a video game? Yes, Fallout, shit. Last of Us. There's a lot of modern examples. There were movies and TV shows where the subject matter was the game, but it's not based on the game. For instance, Mazes and Monsters, starring Tom Hanks as a teenager. That's how long ago that movie came out. And it was about the panic about Dungeons and Dragons. And people play Dungeons and Dragons, they're going to think it's real, and they go psychotic. And that's what he did, right? He went psychotic. Just from playing Mazes and Monsters. How'd they not get sued for that? Mazes and Monsters instead of Dungeons and Dragons. Kiss my ass. We know what you're referencing. Sue these mother effers. Give me a break, man. So I don't know how they didn't get sued. But yeah, I think there's even a movie came out based on Battleship. Loosely, it's just the name, I guess. Then we've had movies come out based on theme park rides. Pirates of the Caribbean was great, but not because it was based on a theme park ride. They got lucky. They struck gold there. Hunter Stone. Yeah, I wasn't saying it was a black or white situation. A writer can tell both an entertaining story and have a deep message in it. It's so interesting because you've got the intended message and then you've got the unintended message. And sometimes people can just read into shit. I've told this story before, but like the song Rock On from the 60s. Hey kids, rock and roll, rock on, right? The writer of that song is being interviewed. And the interviewer asks him, what does this song lyric mean where you say, where do you go from here, which is the way that's clear? And then they had this 2-minute thesis about how they thought that, this was about teenagers and it's the 60s and teenagers don't know, should they protest? Should they go to Vietnam? Should they be part of capitalism and capitalism's evil? Should they work within the system or work outside the system? Like, where do we go, which is the way that's clear? Right? Like, where do we go from here, which is the way that's clear? And the interviewer said all this shit. And then the songwriter says, I just put that in there because it rhymed. Now, that's a classic story. It's an iconic story. It might even be an urban legend. Like, I haven't literally seen that interview. I've just heard it repeated several times from several different sources. It could even be an urban legend. But say that it's true. Take it at face value. Maybe he did just put that in there since it rhymes. But it does fit the themes of what the interviewer was talking about. He's talking about, hey kids, rock and roll. And then later in the song, Where do we go from here? Which is the way that's clear, right? So subliminally, subconsciously, some part of him probably was chewing on this shit. Especially because singers and songwriters in the 60s were just inundated with messaging. And everybody wanted them on their side because that was a powerful way to sway people back then. Radio was king. TV was big, but radio was bigger back then. And so if you get a song on the radio and it had a message, you could sway hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of people. Alice's Restaurant, God knows how many people that swayed. So many of these other there's a season for everything, whatever that song was. Change of season. So songs could impact people. That was a way to influence people, and so everybody was trying to pull them every direction they could. So I seriously doubt he was sitting down writing. I could have been high, but I seriously doubt he was sitting down writing and not giving any thought at all of what he was saying. Maybe he just didn't want to commit, and so he made a joke with the interviewer. But who knows? Where does it come from? And I think Stephen King talks about this a lot. Where do ideas come from? And he thinks it's none of the writer's business. You just take the ideas, you accept them, you use them, and you don't look where they come from. And I think you can be up your own ass too much and try to chase everything down, and you can stifle your creativity when you do that. So I kind of agree with Stephen King. Big shock. Pretty much a devotee at this point. But no, I think he's right. Like, you don't want to analyze that stuff too much. But so, is it possible? I just want to be entertaining and tell an entertaining story. I literally don't give a shit on a surface level, on a conscious level of giving a message to anybody. Mainly because here's my thing. Like, this is one of the reasons I don't believe in it. I don't think you can change people's minds. I don't think it's possible. I don't think you can sway anybody. Now, maybe it's just my specific upbringing. In fact, I'm so stubborn and peer pressure never affected me. And my brother torturing me for weeks never affected me. He tried to get me to smoke dope one time. I can't remember how many straight days it was. But he would tell me to smoke some of the joint. I would say no, and he'd beat my ass. Every day for weeks. And I kept saying no. And he kept doing it. And I kept saying no. And he kept doing it. I kept saying it. Finally, he gave up. He couldn't do it anymore. Because I was more stubborn than he was. The peer pressure, no effect. I don't give a shit. So maybe it's just me. It's very hard for people to sway me. But if a logical argument can do it, I'm open-minded. It's just, somebody trying to manipulate me or trying to force me one way or another. Especially if I didn't ask, hey, you mind changing my mind? Maybe, there's the thing. I think people think an opinion is an open invitation to change it, right? We have some opinions we don't want to change, All babies should eat. I'm not open to you change my mind about that, Like, starvation is bad. I'm not open to you change my mind about that. Like, I don't think every opinion is subject to change. And I don't think every expressed opinion is subject to change. So, I just think that I don't believe that I can sway other people. I don't believe I can change anybody's mind. I don't think I've had hundreds and hundreds of hours of reactions. I seriously doubt I've changed a single person's mind about anything whatsoever in all that time. I'm just here to entertain, man. We're having fun. I want to have fun. I want to laugh a little bit. Debate is great. Oh, you think this? Wow, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way. I don't agree, but that's interesting that you think that. Like, because I love that shit because that's how it helps me write characters. I can't just have my own opinions. I got to be exposed to other opinions and other ideas so I can write fully rounded characters and characters who don't believe the shit that I believe. Otherwise, they'd all sound like me, right? So I'm super open to everybody else's ideas. And I think a couple people have changed my mind on a couple things. For instance, I was against, I always wanted English dubs when I first started this. And now I just want Japanese subtitles, right? Japanese language, audio, English subtitles. That's how I want it now. That's what I seek out. You have to physically tell me, no, I want this in the American, I want this in English dub. You have to tell me that for me to watch it that way. So that's 100% change for me. I started this journey 100%. I wanted it in English. I don't want to have to read subtitles, and now I'm 100% the other way. So you changed my mind. But it wasn't one person. It was a collective who changed my mind. I don't think any one person can change any other one person's mind about anything. Now, if we all gang up on you collectively, maybe we can change your mind about something, especially if we're right and you're wrong. You guys were right, I was wrong. But so I don't believe you can, and I think you're foolish to try to change people's minds. I think you're wasting your breath, you're wasting your energy. Like, ain't nobody changing their damn mind about nothing, right? So I don't even try. So I have no inclination to try. I have no desire to try. I don't want to, because it's useless. Now, if I believed it was possible, maybe I would want to, but I don't believe it's possible, so I don't want to. So I literally don't seek out when I'm trying to entertain or tell stories. Entertain this way or with stories, right? I'm not trying to pass any messages on people. I'm not trying to influence shit. I just, now, if I can make you think about something, that's really cool. Like, for instance, here's a classic example. It's my firm belief that body swapping, if my consciousness goes into your body and your consciousness goes into my body, that you would think you're me and I would think I'm you, because I know I'm in your body, because we can't physically carry biological memories from one brain to another, right? So we would only have the memories inside the actual body that we're inside of. I firmly believe that. Maybe I have opened you up to that possibility and opened your mind up, and maybe you now believe that because I said that. But that's possible. Now, that's the kind of shit I want to change people's minds about. I would love to change people's minds about that, because I really think it's deeply stupid for somebody to be in another person's body but retain the memories from the original body. I think it's just dumb. It doesn't work. Show me on a map how that works, right? I think it's stupid. So if I can change your mind about that, I feel very strongly and passionately about that. I'm trying to change your mind about that. So that's, mostly though, we're talking about messaging, politics, gender roles, culture, the culture wars. Ooh, that crap, right? Like, ain't nobody changing nobody's mind. It just ain't gonna happen. So that's where I'm coming from. But, once some of my views bleed over, like what I believe, bleed into the story, just the sensibility of the story, like how it's presented, sure. Probably. Unintentionally. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about here. Even when you're not doing it intentionally, how can you stop it 100%? The floodgates can only hold so much water, Probably right. Yeah, I think that's probably true. I don't like it. I would like to have my shit just be about entertainment. Especially when that's not my goal. But, probably some shit bleeds through at some point or another. I'm sure you're right. So, that's probably where we're at with that conversation, I think. Now, here's a case in point. The other way. Just to put a button on this conversation. You will never in a million years fucking convince me that doing thumbnails on YouTube videos is a good idea. Now, you have convinced me that I shouldn't be... You did change my mind about me being on a high horse about that. I have changed my mind about my stupid high horse. Now I don't judge you. I'm not all judgmental. And I'm not thinking, I'm so morally superior to you morons who want these thumbnails on these videos, right? So I don't think I'm superior anymore. I'm not morally superior to you. But you're never going to convince me to do it. So... That's an example. You ain't convincing me of something. Like, if I'm not open to being convinced, right? Again, an expressed opinion isn't necessarily an invitation to change that opinion, and that is the case here. We settled that early on in this podcast, probably the second or third episode. That's settled law. But another case where you can't convince me. You ain't changing a person's mind, right? Okay. This is Barakoyo. The Pokemon show is unique in that it doesn't have a source manga. It's based on the game. Or at least the older show is. There's different versions of this shit? There's different versions of Pokemon. We got incarnations of it. We got remakes of Pokemon. What the hell is he just going around collecting monsters or whatever, man? And he's got a buddy. The Pokemon's Ash is the actual dude, right? He's got a pet. I'm trying to think, did I see a Pokemon movie? No, I saw the movie that had Ryan Reynolds, the voice, the Detective Pikachu. Was it Pikachu? Is Pikachu Pokemon? I don't know. I may have seen a Pokemon movie, if that's what that was. It was Ryan Reynolds. He played an animated character, right? His spirit had been possessed by whatever, That might have been a Pokemon movie. I'm not sure. I don't know if Pikachu and Pokemon are the same thing. But, how do you have so much story to tell about this shit? They're going around having fights or something, aren't they? Isn't this like Hunger Games with monsters or whatever? Or you're trying to capture them? You're trying to collect them. I mean, I know in the game, the phone game, you're walking around, you find one, you shoot them, and they're yours at that point or something. So I don't know, man. Like, how do you have that much story over this thin ass premise? How are you getting this much effing like? They have more than one version of this shit, man. How? How is that possible? I just, you're blowing my mind, man. I don't understand. Anyway, Jesus. All right, this is Barracuda. This is the last one, so these are going to close this out here. Psychopaths, in my opinion, is a bit of a strange case, strange case, of an anime where the focus is more on the story rather than the main character. Ew. I just spent all day talking about how I love characters, man. The hell. Yeah, it's a great characterization and the characters are good, but the anime focuses more on the story. It's a bit hard to compare to Shunen, where it focuses more on the main characters and the story feels a bit dragged. P.S. I'm totally not trying to bait you into watching Psychopaths. Hee hee. Really? Oh, really? I feel baited. Although I've never heard of Psychopaths. I need to get back to, about to finish Yu Yu. I'm down to once a week for One Piece. I really need to get back into JoJo first before I do anything else. But once I can get back into JoJo and get some stored up, then I think I want to try out a couple more episodes of some of the things I had already watched. See where that goes, see how that does on views, and then go from there. But Psychopaths keep reminding me of that, because that does sound interesting. All right, one more thing. Just want to see if these posts have any comments. This is a little short one. Which show's cliffhangers go consistently the hardest? I did a poll. One Piece won with 57%. The other options are Alice in Borderland, Lost, and How to Get Away with Murder. Now, I guess you just haven't watched How to Get Away with Murder. Those cliffhangers, those episode-ending cliffhangers were crazy. Matter of fact, they were brazy with a B. They were brazy. They were insane. Incredible cliffhangers. I don't know if I've ever seen a show that more consistent. Every single episode had an absolutely batshit crazy cliffhanger. Every one. Especially the mid-season finales and the season finales were especially insane. But every episode had a crazy-ass cliffhanger. There just hasn't been enough people watch that, clearly. Lost, every third or fourth episode had a crazy cliffhanger. Alice in Borderland, at least 60-70% of them have a crazy cliffhanger. I'm surprised by One Piece. Most of the time they don't, right? How many times have I watched One Piece where it's wow, that cliffhanger is so insane, I got to watch the next episode right now? I don't know, 10% maybe? They always have a bit of a cliffhanger, but none of it's oh, well, I can wait, Every now and then there'll be some crazy reveal or they're being attacked and you're not expecting them to be attacked, or somebody comes out of somewhere, somebody's dead when they're supposed to be alive, or they're alive when they're supposed to be dead. Those are insane. But I don't feel like consistently the cliffhangers are brazy. None of them are brazy. Not a single. There's not been a single One Piece cliffhanger I've ever seen that was brazy. Maybe when Luffy became Joy Boy. The first time that happened, when we first saw that. I think that was at the end of an episode. That was brazy. Other than that, it's just been regular crazy, lowercase crazy, a little nuts maybe. I was honestly surprised by this. Speak to this. Speak to this in the comments. Remind me of some crazy ass cliffhangers, because I'm not feeling it, man. I'm not seeing that. I don't remember that. And a lot of this is fresh in my mind. It's more I want to keep watching the show because I want to keep watching the show. Alice in Borderland, Lost, and How to Get Away with Murder, I have to watch the next episode because what the hell just happened? What the hell is this? And like I said, not every episode with Alice in Borderland and Lost. The way I would rank them, How to Get Away with Murder, are way up at number 1. Alice in Borderland a distant 2, Lost 3, and then One Piece 4. So I'm astonished. Maybe it's just lack of access. You haven't seen some of these other shows. So you're a One Piece fan. That's the one show you recognize, so you pick that. Speak to this in the comments. I really want to hear about this. Because this was a really surprising result to me. All right, and one more thing just real quick. The reason I put in this which country's cuisine is the best was because of Barracuda. he recently revealed somewhere, I don't remember where, that he lives in Greece. He's from Greece. I love Greek food. I rank countries based on how good their food is. And so I did a poll, and the options were Japan, China, Greece, and Italy. Greece got their ass kicked for some reason. I mean, these are four strong choices. They're great food in all these places, right? China, or Italy, of course, won 47%. China number two, 26. Japan 19%, and then Greece only got 9%. Y'all tripping, man. Greek food is so good. So if I was to rank the best countries in the world as far as their food, how good their food is. Now, I would put Italy first. Like, I'm just going to keep it 100. I'm going to put Italy first. Thailand would be number two. I effing love Thai food. Thai food is absolutely incredible. I love it. Thailand would be number two. Greece would be number three. Their food is amazing. I love seafood anyway. I love olives. I love salads. You know, so that's a lot of it. And then there's even like they have like Greek pasta and stuff like that, you know, which is really good. Just there's a couple of Greek restaurants I've known in my life, and they're so effing good. They make good pizza, even though I don't think pizza comes from Greece. I don't think in Greece you probably can't find pizza. But that's number three. Japan would be number four. Number five, that's the last one. That's tough, man, because I love German food. I love Mexican food. I mean, what would we call that? It's really not a country, though, because I love Tex-Mex, which is a combination of Mexican, Native American, and American. The three combined, right? Actual food from Mexico, in Mexico, is not as good. I still like it, but it's not as good. I've actually had some food from Spain, which is even more not as good. It's not terrible. They have pretty good seafood, but it's not as good. You know, and I've had food from like Guatemala and Puerto Rico, and it's not as good. I love Tex-Mex, but Tex-Mex isn't a country, right? So I don't think Mexican can be on this top five, even though I do love Mexican food a lot, but I love Tex-Mex, like I said. So I guess China would be number five. So that's my list. I'd love to hear yours. Alrighty, well, there we are. There's the feedback. I know it's a shorter one, fewer questions. Drop more questions in. So, you know, question me up or comment me up, and then we'll have a longer one next time. But hey, it takes as long as it takes, and it's as short as it wants to be. So there we are.